Imagine you are a hunter-gatherer 15,000 years ago. Your life is a non-stop episode of the most brutal survival show imaginable. Every waking hour is dedicated to not being stepped on by a woolly mammoth, not freezing to death in a cave, and finding enough calories to see tomorrow morning. In this high-stakes race for survival, logic dictates that you should stay alert, fast, and sharp. So why on earth did humans decide to take perfectly good wild grain, soak it in water, let it literally rot, and then drink the liquid that makes them lose their balance, slur their speech, and wake up with a headache that feels like a rock hammer to the skull? Biologically speaking, alcohol is a toxin. It's poison. Our bodies should treat it like a catastrophic biological error. Yet, here we are. Almost every major modern social interaction, from weddings to multi-billion-dollar business deals, involves this ancient rot juice. But what if I told you that alcohol wasn't a mistake? What if it was the actual engine that pulled us out of the mud and built the modern world? To understand why we drink, we have to go back 10 million years, long before we were even human. Our ancestors were living in the trees of Africa, eating fruit. But there was a problem: competition. Birds, insects, and larger primates were all fighting for the same fresh, sweet fruit. But then, some fruit would fall to the forest floor. It would sit in the tropical heat, and natural yeasts would begin to eat the sugar, turning it into ethanol. To most animals, this was rotten, fermented garbage. But for our ancestors, it was a massive opportunity. We developed a specific genetic mutation, a change in the ADH4 enzyme. This allowed us to digest alcohol 40 times faster than any other primate. Suddenly, the forest floor wasn't a graveyard of rotten fruit. We didn't learn to like alcohol. We evolved to thrive on it. This genetic hack gave us a massive edge over our competitors. While other monkeys were starving, we were getting a light buzz and a lot of calories. For decades, the history books told a very specific story. Humans settled down to grow wheat because they wanted to make bread. Bread meant food security, and food security was the foundation of civilization. It sounds logical, right? The problem is, bread is boring, and early farming was a complete nightmare. Why would a free, healthy hunter-gatherer choose to spend 12 hours a day breaking their back in a dusty field, fighting off pests and praying for rain, just for a dry loaf of whole-grain bread? Hunter-gatherers actually had a more varied diet, better health, and significantly more free time than early farmers. Farming initially was a terrible career move. But then, archaeologists looked at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the oldest temple in the world, built 11,000 years ago. They found no signs of permanent kitchens or bread ovens. What they did find were massive stone vats that could hold up to 40 gallons of liquid. Chemical analysis showed traces of oxalate, a clear byproduct of brewing beer. It turns out, the first massive human gatherings weren't for farming, they were for festivals. Humans didn't settle down because they were hungry for toast. They settled down because they wanted a reliable, massive supply of beer for religious rituals and social bonding. Farming wasn't the goal. It was the infrastructure required to keep the brewery running. When you force hundreds of high-testosterone, territorial hunter-gatherers into a small, crowded village, they usually end up trying to kill each other. Alcohol acts as the ultimate social lubricant. It lowers the fight-or-flight response in the brain. It allowed strangers from different tribes to sit around a communal fire, share stories, and cooperate on massive projects, like building irrigation systems or city walls. You can't build a civilization if everyone is constantly stabbing each other. You need an ancient happy hour to keep the peace. Second, the health aspect. For 99% of human history, water was a biological gamble. If you drank from a stream where an animal had just died upstream, you got dysentery and your story ended. In a crowded early city, water was a death sentence. The next time you're out with friends, look at your glass. You're not just holding a drink, you're holding the liquid foundation of the human story. We aren't a species of logical philosophers. We are a species of drunken monkeys who figured out how to turn a biological toxin into a global civilization.